Robert Scheer, I want to go back to you. What does this mean for the future of American capitalism?
Well, I think Senator Sanders made a very important point. You know, Barack Obama, back in March at Cooper Union, Robert Rubin, who's now unfortunately close to the campaign, in January of this year, he's the guy who in the Clinton administration pushed through the Financial Services Modernization Act, allowing this madness. But in January, he said, we don't have a problem. This is just a normal fluctuation of the market. That was in a speech he gave at Cooper Union. However, in March, Barack Obama gave a very good speech on the economy. He said much of what we have been saying on the show so far. Unfortunately, he lost that voice temporarily, and these people like Summers and Rubin moved over to his campaign. So I think if Barack Obama can recover his populist voice that got him where he so far in the primaries, I think this should be a runaway. I mean, it's unbelievable that the American people would want 4 more years of this madness. I would point out, you've asked a question about covering foreign banks. One of those foreign banks, UBS, Swiss base, is where Phil Gramm works. He was rewarded after being head of the banking committee, pushing through this deregulation. His wife, Wendy Graham, went to work for Enron, was on their audit committee. She runs a big institute for deregulation that the big corporations put a lot of money into. Phil Gramm went to work for UBS, a foreign-based banking conglomerate, and now they want to extend this coverage to those banks. These people have no shame. I think it's time, as I said before, to really talk about criminal investigation. They have defrauded the American people, and they changed the laws. You know, the old folk song, Woody Guthrie, I guess, you know, some will rob you with a gun and others with a fountain pen. I mean, imagine these people came in, rewrote federal regulation to exempt the kind of credit swaps. I know people find this a bit confusing, but I'm saying they got to read up on it. The hybrid instruments that they talk about, that's what allowed all of this. That's why AIG got in trouble. They're supposed to be selling insurance. They're not supposed to be backing security packages. And all of this stuff was hidden. It was murky. The bankers themselves admit they don't know what was going on. And all of that was made legal. It was illegal up until, you know, less than 10 years ago. It was made legal by acts of Congress led by the Republicans. And unfortunately, a majority of Democrats backed it. And Bill Clinton signed off on that first major legislation. So we have to be very wary. Yeah.
Well, Bob Scheer, the amazing irony now is, as we read in some of the papers today, that the very firms that were involved in creating this crisis are now lining up in Washington to be able to become managers in case the federal government buys up this debt, and then it needs to manage how it will get rid of the debt, so that the very firms are now lining up to become the money managers of the distressed debt that the government buys.
Right. What you've got here is really the end of the Reagan Revolution. And I hate to bring up the bad F word, but, you know, there is a model for this, and Mussolini had it in Italy, and it's called fascism. It's where your big corporate interests throw in with government, destroy the freedom of the rest of the people, and preserve their power. Everybody forgets private corporations and banks did quite well, made out quite well in Italy and Germany in those days, you know. And I am really worried about this assault on our democracy. The idea, we didn't cover insurance, as Sanders pointed out, insurance for 4 million kids, because Bush vetoed it and said $7 billion was too much to spend to cover insurance, health insurance for 4 million kids. But now they can throw $700 billion at these banks, and they say we can't even have hearings about it. It is absolutely outrageous, and I don't want to lose that point I made earlier. The best way to deal with this crisis now is to put a freeze on foreclosures. That's what the Democrats should be. It's what Hillary mentioned during the primaries. I don't know if she did it just as a one-liner, but the fact is it's a very reasonable thing to do. Say American homeowners should not suffer now. You know, if people were given these mortgages, and by the way, it's not just the subprime mortgage holders that hurt. If the housing market collapses as it has, it hurts everyone. Why not a freeze on foreclosures? And why are the Democrats not pushing that idea? Let's help out the people who are suffering, you know, and the working people, middle-class people, poor people who have these homes. It's their whole asset, instead of worrying about saving Goldman Sachs and saving Citigroup. And it's amazing to me that a guy like Paulson could have been head of Goldman Sachs. He knew this was all going on. Robert Rubin was head of Goldman Sachs. tax, they go into the government, and now they're going to bail out their former companies, and we have to pay for it? I mean, it's outrageous.
Dean Baker, you're the head of Center for Economic and Policy Research. It's based in Washington, D.C. The climate right now, I mean, watching the Sunday talk shows, there was this clear sense that if this is not accomplished in the next few days, that it's like before the invasion of Iraq. We can be hit by a weapon of mass destruction is basically the idea. And this is about not saving Wall Street, but saving the American people. That was the message that was put out immediately yesterday.
Well, I want to walk a line here. I mean, there is a point. The system of payments stopped working last week. If that happened, we would have to, go to buy our groceries with gold. We had a serious situation. Now, on the other hand, the Fed and Treasury were able to deal with it. They are able to deal with it. They have the resources to deal with that. But it is a very serious situation. So they aren't talking about total nonsense in that. Now, they're trying to scare Congress to death because it's not as though we have to do it today or tomorrow. And, what I would say is we do have to keep the system operating, but it should be punitive.
They're saying by Thursday or Friday.
Punitive.
They're saying by Thursday or Friday.
We could probably wait a week. We could probably wait 2 weeks. But the point is, it could be punitive. It should be punitive. That is the whole point. If UBS wants to come here and sell 90% of their company to us to sell their junk, fine. And their CEOs are going to get a 90 or 95% pay cut, fine. It's got to be punitive. I don't care if the whole world wants to sell their financial system to us. That's fine. We can structure this. We should structure it in a way that keeps the system operating and is punitive so that UBS is not happy to have to come here. That can be done, and that's what should be the focus. I should also say progressives have an unbelievable opportunity here. The people hate Wall Street now. They see that you have the highest paid people in the country that ruin their companies, ruin the economy, and now they're asking for a handout. We have a chance to turn around the inequality that's been built up over the last 30 years by hitting it right at the top if we focus in the right direction. We can do this. They have to have that bailout. They do need it. We have time, and we can impose the conditions that ensure that the people who got us here get punished.
On that note, I want to thank you both for being with us. Of course, we will continue to cover this. Dean Baker with the Center for Economic and Policy Research, Robert Scheer, veteran journalist, columnist.